Welcome back, guys. I honestly just can't keep the smile off my face after that performance yesterday from the Scots doing one over on the English. Oh, so many years have been absolutely demoralised after the Scotland England game, but recent years it's how the tide has turned. But anyway, I'm sure it'll come to bite us in the arse in the years to come, so we won't get too smug about it. But great performance, I really enjoyed it. Making the most of a sunny, great weekend, to be honest. Okay, today we're going to talk about half marathons. Great race distance, my favourite for sure. And that's really where I kick-started, moving on from park run and entering a half marathon. Really got my training into gear and absolutely just loved it. So probably the most important aspect of training for the half marathon is the 80-20 rule and threshold. So I'll talk about the 80-20 rule in a minute, but just an introduction to threshold. So threshold is the pace or effort that you can maintain for 1 hour of exercise. And this will give you some information of what your threshold heart rate is. This will be different for running and biking and swimming, but we're going to talk about running mainly. It's probably most likely to be the highest for your running. For me, this doesn't cross correlate for you, so don't take my numbers. But my threshold heart rate for running is mid to high 170s. On the bike, it's mid 160s, and then we'll not talk about the swimming heart rate at this stage. But that's a background on threshold. Now I train threshold mainly in intervals, due to the amount of stress that it puts on the body. So I don't want to spend a sustained period of time running and training at threshold in order to try and mitigate any injury concerns.
Okay, so I want to start off by talking about the 80-20 principle. This is not the Pareto principle, 80-20 rule as applied to engineering, but it is in fact a different principle that 80% of your training should be relatively easy and then 20% should be higher effort, sort of threshold kind of effort. So in order to calculate this, it's going to be very, very different paces for different people. I recommend the v.o2.com website to work this out for you. So if you put in the event distance where you've had an all-out effort, put in your time, and then put in the distance of measurement, whether that be miles or kilometers that you want to see this in, it'll spit out some race paces for that particular distance, but more importantly, training in those areas. So it'll give you an easy pace zone, your predicted marathon pace, your threshold pace. This is important. We'll come back to this later. And any interval sessions that you should try and hit those paces. This again will give a predicted marathon pace, half marathon, 10k and 5k times from your one max effort that you've inputted. So in order to train these this 20%, I do intervals. So one of the sessions that I highly recommend is 1 kilometer in your easy zone pace and then 1 kilometer at your threshold pace. Now, threshold is the pace or effort that you can sustain for 1 hour of exercise. And for the half marathon, this is fantastic area to train in because it's going to be just slightly quicker than your half marathon speed. So for me, that's around the 340 to 345, probably more 345 minute per kilometer. So I'll do 1k easy in my easy zone and then 1k on. And I'll do this probably 4 or 5 to maybe even 6 times in in a threshold session, and there you can see those spikes your heart rate to threshold. The reason why you do intervals is because it's not as taxing on your body. Now a bike session, that I know we're talking about running here, but obviously biking is a fantastic way to maintain fitness if for some reason you can't run. Be that injury. I've just been injured for the past month basically, so I've been incorporating threshold sessions on the bike. So on the bike I work a little bit harder probably, in that I do a 4 minute on and 2 minute off, and I'll repeat this 4 minutes at threshold and then 2 minutes easy on the bike for approximately an hour, and that will give a similar training effect to the intervals that I mentioned previously. Now the pictures relayed on screen at the moment are of my first half marathon back in the spring of 2023. I really wanted to maintain a pace of 4 minutes per kilometre, and I was just over that target, but I did manage to tuck under 85 minutes, which I was pretty pleased with at the time, given it first half marathon, wasn't quite sure how to pace it, and did a reasonable job. Now we'll just come down to the bottom of the screen, which gives the splits and the heart rate, which is the most important thing. Now from your training at the threshold efforts, you'll get an idea of where your heart rate is in the threshold area. I know that for me this is the high 170s, and as you can see I go above this in the half marathon far too early on, and that's why those paces towards the end increase substantially to over 4 minutes per kilometre, because I've gone above that pace that my body can maintain for 1 hour, and when you reach that point you're on borrowed time and it's going to bite you in the arse come later. So I know that moving forward, that if I see my heart rate go above 177 probably in a half marathon, then I really know that I need to pull that pace back in order to get that heart rate under control, because that's above a threshold effort and it's unsustainable. You can just see on the heart rate graph there, that's where I've paid the price. But really it was only the last 4k where it got really tough, and you can actually see from the pictures on the screen now, these are all taken in the last 4 kilometers, and yeah, it was an absolute grind. This one in particular is one of my firm favorites, but I got to the end and really enjoyed the day. It was fantastic. Probably really kicked off my love for running, and just made better by the company as well, of course. Big shout out to Kate for and her performance there as well was pretty impressive. Now on to my second half, which was in September of 2023. It's just actually my cousin in the middle of this shot there, and obviously Kate was running again. Great pick of Kate Thornhall there. And this was a week after the European Championships qualifier, so I was in probably the best shape I've been in realistically, and I had a good day out. It was just after the heat wave. The temperature had just come down enough so that it was reasonably enjoyable. It was an incredibly fast, flat course, flatter than Wilmslow, even so. And that gave great potential for a pretty quick time. So I knew coming into it that, right, okay, I need not to push it too hard in the first half, where in the spring I definitely had done. And if you just start to come on to screen now is the splits. So I maintained in the first half of the race my heart rate around the low 170s. So I knew that was comfortably below my threshold heart rate. And that allowed me to really, really push on in the second half of the race. And that's where I've picked up the time really, really well. There was some splits coming in there, 3:39 a couple of times in the second, in the closing 5 kilometers. enabling me to really hit the paces that I wanted to, and smash that time from the spring by about 4 minutes. So my overall time for this half marathon was I think it was 80 minutes and 49 seconds, around that. So just over the 80-minute mark, running at about 3:52 minutes per kilometre. Fastest split 3:39, 3:09 at the end. So I paced that. I genuinely, for the condition that I was in, I don't think I could have gone any faster. The heart rate graph is perfect there. It's just a trajectory upwards all the way, a slow trajectory upwards all the way, and that's really what I'm aiming for. Moving on. So just some pictures in the last sort of I think it was the last 500 meters really. So it shows I've got a bit of energy in the tank, and anyway, it was a good sprint finish with that lad in Cape Town. A really great day at Cheshire Half Marathon. Would really recommend it. Really well organised. A great day.
So to wrap up, we'll just talk a little bit more about threshold. So threshold, really, there are two thresholds: aerobic and anaerobic threshold. For the purpose of this video, we've been really talking about anaerobic threshold. Aerobic threshold we'll come on to in future videos. But the anaerobic threshold is basically the point where your body can't process the lactic acid that has built up in your muscles, and that lactate then begins to build exponentially. And from that point of view, you can't keep on for any sustained period of time running or biking with the lactic acid building in your muscles exponentially. So that's why that's the science behind it. Obviously, that's fairly brief and not very in depth. But that's a shortcut version of what it means. Right, okay. Goals for me, just wrapping up. So I put this video out because it's important to my training at the moment. So as I've mentioned, been injured for a couple of weeks, but I'm exactly 4 weeks away from Wilmslow Half Marathon on Sunday the 24th of March. And it's a goal of mine to break that 80-minute mark. So I'm really excited for it. I'm really motivated, and I can't wait to let you know how I get on. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your week, and thank you very much for watching. I haven't mentioned this so far, but I might take the chance now. Please like, comment and subscribe as well. Thanks all. Cheers.